Hello and welcome to this live interaction with me, Ashish Parekh. And like we've been discussing about all the COVID related developments, this particular development that I'll be telling you today about is a tech related one, and is something that will bring smiles not just for patients but also doctors across the world who are trying to understand the modes of transmissions and also the patterns of transmission of this particular virus. Now, over the period of past few weeks, we've all seen how COVID-19 related diagnostics and also various other methods of testing have changed. The beliefs that were there during the beginning of the pandemic has slowly evolved, and a lot more efficient ways of diagnosis have been developed. And one of the tests that a lot of people are talking about is the antibody test, which is not just about identifying whether a person had got the virus and how his immune system responded to it, but also trying to understand how bodies react to this particular virus, how immune systems, what sort of trigger do the immune systems actually need to make sure that they are robust, and they are also efficient as far as the response for the virus is concerned. Now, the scientists at the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology have developed a rapid, reliable and a low cost antibody test which can solve a lot of problems. Now, when we speak about antibody tests, there are major issues. One, you have very good antibody tests, but the problem with them is that they need a lot of operators, and they require a large process which makes sure that the result is out only after a few days. And then you have a very portable, very fast result serving antibody test, but then a lot of people have said that they are not very reliable. So it is very difficult in balancing between the two. And the outcome of all of this is that antibody tests are something that a lot of people have done away with. It is something not scientists and researchers across the world only use for their research purposes, and general testing is something that not a lot of people are relying on as far as antibodies are concerned. But these scientists have developed something that they believe could transform the way COVID-19 testing is done, and also could change the way we look at how the vaccine could be developed, and also how the transmission of the virus takes place. Now, let me just give you a brief information about this particular chip that has been developed, and after that we'll start speaking to our expert who will be explaining more about how this chip would help us in detecting the virus, and also how it could help us in fighting the virus itself. Now, the device which is described as a proof of concept study that has been published in the Biosensors and Bioelectronics journal, and it also uses portable lab on a chip technology. So this basically means that a particular chip will have an entire lab on itself, and this will be used to find out the antibodies in a person. Now, researchers have done this basically to fill the gap that is there, to fill the chasm that is there between tests which give out results late and also tests which give out results fast but are not really reliable. So there is a huge gap. That is something that the researchers across the world are trying to fill. Also, this chip provides results within just 30 minutes, and also will be much more cheaper than other methods of testing as far as antibodies are concerned. And also, this combines a powerful light sensing technology with a microfluidic chip which will be determining the antibodies in your body. Now, the biggest USP, however, of this particular technology is that it will also measure the quantity of antibodies in your body that a lot of tests do not really focus on. Earlier in the time, we also spoke about how the number of cycles in a test also play a huge part. Here, the chip also will make sure that the quantitative analysis is also done as far as antibodies is concerned. Before we delve into all of these details, let me just head across to our expert for the day, Dr. Sitesh Roy, who will be giving us more idea about this particular chip and how it could be a game changer as far as COVID-19 testing using antibodies is concerned. So, Dr. Sitesh Roy, first of all, thanks a lot for your time today. Let's talk about this chip now and how quantitative testing could possibly be a game changer. So, first up, how does this chip actually work, and what could be the advantages of quantitative testing?
So the interesting part about this chip is that it has very fine nano surfaces on which the spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2 virus have been coated.
Yeah.
And when through the microfluidic chip, the serum of the patient is passed, it binds to these specific points, after which the fiber optic technology is able to pick up where the binding is occurring, and through that binding they are able to detect not just the antibody but also the quantity of the antibody. And this is a very big game changer for such a rapid test, Ashish, and the reason behind that is that we generally like to do what is called sequential testing
Okay.
to know when a patient's antibodies are waning down and when they might become again possibly susceptible to a repeat infection. And having the actual quantity of the antibody in whatever units that are decided by the testing agency when it is finally in public use will be very beneficial. So if someone has an antibody titer of, let's say, 100 in the
Okay.
first month after infection, because generally these antibodies start becoming positive after day 10 or 14 of the infection.
All right.
So they are very useful for what is called serosurveillance. And let's say 3 months later the level is 50 and 6 months later the level is 25. We can actually then know how the body is responding, and this would be invaluable for vaccinations.
Yeah.
Because post vaccination, measuring the titer of antibody in the person is what determines when they will need the next booster dose of the vaccination.
Yeah.
So I think that there are many applications to this technology. It is still a proof of concept study, so it will take some time to go into actual collaboration and mass production. But whenever it does, it's a great step.
Yeah, and like you already said, it will also help identify when the antibodies are waning away. So again, we've seen a lot of cases of reinfection, and the question that is arising all over the world is that when does a person lose all of his antibodies that he's developed against COVID-19, and that is something that has remained enigmatic. Yes, you've got researchers and scientists across the world coming up with different theories as to these might be the factors that could lead to the waning away of antibodies, or this is the particular period after which a person loses his immunity against COVID-19 after he first contracted it. So, this could also be a game changer as far as determining when a person loses all of those antibodies and, the pattern that is followed, because different people will have different time periods, as far as the waning away of antibodies are concerned. So, there could be some sort of a common ground achieved by this as well. And like you rightly mentioned, it will essentially help in the development of a vaccine, which is something that is the primary focus as of now.
Absolutely, Ashish. And I think that in all of this, recognizing that detecting the antibody is never the primary way of making a diagnosis. As I said, it's later on in the infection. In some patients in whom repeatedly the PCR or the antigen test comes negative, the antibody test eventually reveals to us that it was a COVID infection that was there. But those cases are few and far between. And for those who have had an asymptomatic exposure, in them the antibody test also becomes valuable for them to know that they've been exposed to the virus through a family member or a friend or someone that they were taking care of, sometimes if it's someone close. So while it does have some application in those scenarios, the biggest application, as I said, is for sequential testing and knowing how these antibody titers will help us. Also, another possible application, which I'm just thinking as an immunologist right now, is in the people who are considered to be, for example, plasma donors. We may eventually, with ongoing research, know what level of antibody is an adequate level to know that these plasma donations will work. Because I think the reason why plasma donation in COVID-19 is failing is because they're pre-testing to know whether there are adequate neutralizing antibodies in the blood before giving the donation is not currently being done widely as it should be, because it is a technically difficult process.
Yeah, so like you rightly mentioned, this is another major particular application that could be used as well, because yes, like you rightly said, a lot of people are raising questions on how plasma therapy, plasma donations are not really doing much like a lot of people had claimed. But clearly, like you said, it also is important to determine how much antibody a particular person has before actually understanding if his donation would actually make sure that someone else recovers from the virus. And also this again, we can draw parallels as to the infection of the virus itself. Like a lot of people say that, okay, I have COVID-19, I might be I might be a super spreader or something like that, but it does not really matter like that. A lot of people who have COVID-19 have very less viral load for them to be contagious. So again, that sort of that sort of confusion that prevails among the public is something that can be solved using this. One last question before we wrap up this discussion. I just wanted to know if there could be any possible drawbacks, because yes, a lot of people are saying that this will be reliable, this will be cost effective, this will be everything that we are hearing about this is good, but could there be possibly a drawback? Could there be a chink in the armor as far as this particular chip is concerned?
The likelihood is less, Ashish, because this is a fairly non-invasive test. The data, it's ultimately the scientific data, the medically published data
Yeah.
that we would really have to look at, because as it was said, this is a proof of concept study and the concept has succeeded. Now to actually take it to the trials and compare it, for example, to an established antibody test and see how it performs in the face of the existing antibody test and how well it performs in the face of well identified technologies where we use ELISA, where we use different systems for measuring antibody levels, and see how this test stands up is really the question that all of us would be waiting for. And when we have that answer, I could not see any drawback. In a very long shot, if I think of it right now, the kind of SARS-CoV-2 antigens that they have used to coat the microfluidic processor or chip through which the serum anti and the antibodies are passed. If the SARS-CoV-2 virus had a major mutation by which its antigens changed,
Okay.
then the test would have to be appropriately updated or upgraded to
Yes.
meet the current mutated versions of the virus. That could possibly be the only thing that I can think of could be an issue. The
Okay.
other possibility of the old coronaviruses, whether they interfere with the test, is again something when the scientific studies are done. But so far, whatever is known, it seems like it can be designed in a very, very specific way to only pick up the SARS-CoV-2 virus. So, as I said, this is a great development and something that we must stay tuned into because it can help us in serosurveillance, in monitoring and in future use of vaccines and knowing when to revaccinate a person who may be susceptible in many areas. This could be of benefit.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Roy. Now, that was our expert, Dr. Roy. He also seems to be very optimistic about this particular development, this particular tech, given the fact that it also not just focuses on detecting antibodies, but also could be a game changer as far as development of vaccine is concerned, and also could give much more insight to researchers and the vaccine developers to go about try and understand the reinfection patterns and also the transmission patterns of this particular virus. And also given the fact that this is touted to be a much cheaper technology, something that a lot of people would be able to afford, and also additionally the most focus point of focus right here, the fact that this would give out results very quick is something that is extremely encouraging, and one only hopes that this particular test or this particular chip comes out as early as possible, and it's there for everyone to use. With that, it's a wrap on this live interaction. Do let us know what you guys think about this particular development and also all of these new technologies that are flooding in the market in the course of the development of COVID-19. It's me, Ashish Parekh, signing off. Stay home, stay safe.